Hello, welcome to the Ai Expert Lockdown Spotlight series. We're conducting interviews with key financial industry stakeholders to understand some of the challenges that have come up due to COVID-19 and some of the lessons that are being learned. So our guest today is Nadeem Shakoor. He's Ai Expert's Chief Operating Officer. So hi Nadeem, welcome to Spotlight. And could you just kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, sure. I'm one of the co-founders of Ai Expert, which was founded 4 years ago now. My background, I was a chemical engineer. I love processes, and anything that I could do to improve processes really rocked my world, as it were, rocked my boat. And I was really interested in looking at technology throughout my career, how that could improve performance, how that could give more transparency and visibility. And I got involved with artificial intelligence, machine learning in 2012, 2013, in a major project for an oil and gas company who had basically tasked us to look at terabytes of data, and the tools available then were very, they could look at the quantitative side, but were very poor on the qualitative side. So 80% of the data is unstructured, so you had a big challenge in trying to automate or extract meaningful information. So I got involved with AI, machine learning, to look at unstructured data and how to analyze it. We did a successful proof of concept for that particular oil and gas company, and unfortunately, at that time there was a big data vibe going on, and the people were more interested in big data rather than looking at other tools. So myself and my fellow co-founder was actually at PwC at the time. I convinced him to leave his lucrative, well-paid, large expense account job and come and work for nothing. And our friendship goes back decades, so I managed to convince him to leave, and that started the AI journey for us.
Excellent, and we'll come back to some of the topics around AI in a moment. But talking about the current situation, what have been some of the standout observations for you on some of the drastic changes that have been taking place in the wake of COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, if I look at it purely from a personal point of view, I've had a chance to spend more time with my family, which was unexpected. In the last decade, I've been traveling extensively, and all of a sudden it was like a hard stop. There was no more traveling. And I even got to know my teenagers a bit better. And, unfortunately, now they're talking about we need space, Dad. You're too involved in our lives. Yeah. But, apart from that, I think the key thing I've seen is, and observation I've made is the fact that all of a sudden, as an AI expert, with over 80, 90 staff, we managed to adjust to home working so quickly because we had the tools present. I had a lot of concern because a lot of the people we have are young, and they're in their 20s. Some are on their first assignment. And we thought, these guys would need a lot more supervision, but thankfully, what we've forgotten is that most of the time these guys are very familiar with social media and so using tools to run their social lives. So adjusting to using Zoom, and we use Microsoft Teams extensively. It was very quick adjustment. Has it affected the way we work? Well, I think from a client-facing point of view, it has affected. Your decisions are getting slower. The client responses are slower. And you just can't simply get up and if you're a client, you just can't simply walk into someone's office and say, look, can you have a look at this quickly for me, please? Because what's happened is that people are all of a sudden now back-to-back block booked on video calls. And I think over the next a week, month, 2 months, things should calm down and we get back to some normal working. But one of the biggest things that I've noticed certainly is the fact that data is not accessible for a lot of companies, especially the financial services, and it takes a lot of effort to try and extract that data. A lot of permissions need to be obtained, and it's a very bureaucratic, laborious process just to get to work with suppliers. And we have one project that's working on cloud, an external cloud, but that's their data has been anonymized, and we've had to sign our lives away just to get access to the data. So in that respect, it's been a learning curve. But one of the good things is that the companies and banks and other institutions are seriously looking at automation now.
Yeah, definitely. And that really leads on to the next question. So in your role as COO of a RegTech firm, what are some of the recent trends you've noticed in the financial services?
Well, interesting. I had a conversation with the DIT yesterday, and one of the things that one of my concerns has been for the last 2 or 3 years is we are continually, as a company, put into the fintech pot, and the fintech pot, it is delivering. You've got digital banking happening. You've got digital payments are rising. I think they've ballooned over the last year or so. But there's a big requirement to actually automate the back end, which you've got really nice digital front ends, but the back ends are being neglected because we get in terms of investment, because it's fair. The digital banking and so forth are much more exciting rather than RegTech, which is basically the high risk area of banking. Is if you don't address compliance and regulatory affairs properly, you can end up with a wirecard situation as you've got in Germany, and the regulator, most of the stuff unfolded during advisory supervision and also regulatory supervision. So this is a key area for banks moving forward. They need to automate this, and they need to have smart technologies that can be trained by themselves in the way that they approach regulation, as opposed to being dictated by suppliers like ourselves.
Sure. And coming back to your point about sort of remote working, how do you think that plays into some of these regulatory compliance challenges, and what steps can firms take to mitigate the challenges related around remote working?
I think remote working is not going away. Some of the banks I've spoken to over the last few weeks have said that in some cases that they don't think they'll be able to move a substantial amount of their staff back into offices until next year. And that's the big tier 1 banks are talking this way, and it's going to take them a fair bit of time to put in procedures in terms of who comes in, who doesn't come in, how often, how the work is going to change or evolve. But what I've certainly seen from the conversations that I've had is that there is going to be drastic changes around home working, and the challenges like data access have to be resolved. And what I've seen is that there are being attempts made to do that. And we're working on a number of projects in that area around remote working. Is how do you make sure that time isn't wasted trying to access systems or access data which is either out of date, irrelevant, or non-compliant. How do you actually have that data presented to home workers in such a way that they're looking at the golden record or the record of the most optimal record for that customer? And there is work going underway to do that, to make sure that data is presented in a way to simulate how they would working from an office.
Yeah, so data access is obviously one of the short-term challenges to do with banking employees working from home. What do you think will be some other kind of short-term impacts on the financial industry, as well as some of the long-term impacts due to COVID-19?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've gone to your local retail bank lately, but it's you're talking about wait times of an hour and a half to see if you want to even have an account query. And if you go, vast majority of people are not enabled in terms of home banking or smart banking or digital banking. So therefore, the way that the information or products are sold needs to change as well. I recently was looking at remortgaging my house, and that whole process from beginning to end took about 3 hours, and that's not sustainable. I mean, no one's going to hang around on a call for 3 hours, or even on a video call for 3 hours. So a lot of things need to change in terms of pre-populating data, pre-compliance checking, and assessing suitability and affordability. All those kind of things need to be looked at and streamlined to comply with the regulation, but also give the customer the best possible service. And I think banks are seriously addressing that, and the whole evolution in terms of retail banking is happening right now. The front ends are brilliant. We now need to look at the back end and make sure that that is as slick and as stress-free as the front end is.
Excellent. And I think we can all agree a lot of firms weren't really prepared for the crisis. What changes would you recommend to them going forward, so post-COVID, for business continuity and risk management?
I mean, it's a whole plethora of things that need to be looked at. It's the whole employee onboarding process, the training process for employees, the performance management of employees needs to be looked at. And I think from digital home working, you need to make sure, things like mental health issues need to be looked at carefully, because you can't be in a situation where someone's working alone and hasn't got the appropriate support. And line management, I think, is going to have a much more important role in making sure that employees are happy. I mean, we're working in their personal space at the moment, and you need to make that personal space much more conducive to the work-life balance. And that, as a young company, we're getting there. There's a lot of things that we want to do, but we can't do because of our limitations in terms of where our people are. I mean, we're on 3 different continents at the moment, and it's very, very hard to actually be able to do things in a consolidated way. But I've also seen employers putting in, pushing staff to go on holiday, for instance. I mean, working from home for the last 3 or 4 months, and the limitations in terms of flights and holidays and transport. That's another thing. I mean, what do? You completely switch off, but you're still at home. So yeah. I think these are challenges that I see. I think mental health is going to be, and stress management are going to be the key areas that employers need to look at if they're going to continue working from home. they need to have a very robust feedback mechanism from employees.
Yeah, and definitely that separation from like work and home is very difficult to master at the moment. Doesn't matter which room in the house you're in.
Especially any minute, I could have a delivery driver knocking on my door, and I could be exactly, or my mum could walk in with a cup of tea.
Yeah, wouldn't be so bad, but maybe not.
Yeah, so it's all part of the fun of working from home.
Yeah. It's always fun, like informing the whole family that you've got an important meeting at X time, and just like don't have the big.
I think they're getting used to it. I mean, in the southeast or in the UK per se, you don't have huge houses like in the States or elsewhere.
Yeah.
So you can't really disconnect yourself from family stuff.
Yeah. That's tough, but so earlier on you were talking about your experience in kind of technology and how you came to find yourself working in AI. Do you think the current situation will act as a stimulus for digital transformation as well as automation? I mean, you've already kind of talked about that a bit, but how do you think that will kind of spur on this trend?
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing this, and last 3 months since COVID-19 hit, we're seeing an uptick in queries coming globally from and partners, from customers, from partners, say asking, which part of this the regulatory processes can we automate, and we've been doing a lot of one-to-one workshops and working with clients to actually allow them to understand what automation and the impacts of automation could be on their business. And we also work with a leading robotic process automation company, Prism. And there's a lot of what they're saying, what their customers are saying to us is, we've done a lot of the automation of back-end processes, but the cognitive part is missing. I.e., the understanding of what the data reports or the BI coming out of RPA, how do we analyze, how do we adjust our processes, and how do we glean the golden nuggets, actually improve the business in terms of automation. Those are the things that we're working with a number of technology vendors, both in the Southeast Asia, in the Middle East, and also the UK. What we're finding is there's a big initiatives in terms of cost reduction going on. So whilst the Chancellor in the UK has been very generous in terms of following, as my dad used to say, there's nothing free in this world. So eventually we'll have to pay back what we've got in taxation or other measures. But what businesses are already planning for is things are going to change in terms of taxation and costs. So this is a good time to relook at business processes, look at how we do business, and can we leverage technology to automate those parts of the business that we haven't really looked at. And that's mainly because we are dealing mostly with financial services. That's mainly the back office. That's your mortgage onboarding. That's your know your customer file management. That's looking at financial crime. That's looking at areas such as auditing, financial audit. So all these things that we have good capability, and we are inundated with queries. But I think from our perspective, it's AI is a journey, and we keep on saying this to customers that do not do the big bang approach. Have incremental engagement with various technology providers, and start with small wins that actually impact on your business. Sometimes clients are targeting the hardest parts of their processes, and then they ask them to be automated. Once they see the success of those projects, then they incrementally grow the whole program. And that's what we've done. And we avoid large implementations because customers will take a lot of time to realize the value from large projects. Whereas what we found with incremental projects, they're building up a capability in-house in terms of AI, machine learning, and they're actually increasing the acceptance of using these types of tools at the same time. So yeah, I would recommend, do try, do experiment, do innovate, use your innovation teams internally, but give them specific use cases that you want to address, give them specific problems that you want to address, and bring in the right people to address those problems, because there's a big appetite for vendors to work with customers. But it has to be very specific in terms of you have to be willing to give the vendors the access to the data, access to the processes, access to the subject matter experts to work with, and you will get the results. And we've shown that in multiple projects that we've worked with customers that we can turn you can realize the ROI within 12 weeks. So that's unheard of in most IT projects. So yeah, incremental is best.
So some of the benefits of this technology we've discussed are obviously cutting costs, user experience, and as you just mentioned, building up in-house capability. Obviously, a lot of firms are really struggling at the moment, and the big question is which ones will kind of survive the crisis, which ones will emerge even stronger. So could you kind of summarize what firms can do to retain or improve their competitive edge and the role specifically technology will play in this?
I mean, look, they're probably spending millions of dollars just doing the research right now on this the very subject. I mean, what I've noticed, the companies that are willing to, engage with vendors in a more proactive way and with, consultants in this particular area of automation in a constructive way, saying, as I said before, here is my problem statement. Please suggest how best to actually address that. And what we're finding is that companies that are working collaboratively with their vendors are getting results. And it's not just working with us. I mean, obviously I'd say we're the only company that will work with you collaboratively, but that'd be a lie. There's loads of vendors that just want the opportunity to show the art of the possible. And if they are given, as I said, the access to data, access to subject matter expertise, and a defined problem statement, what you'll get is better results. And what we're finding is the companies that are unsure, they need a lot more help in terms of automation. They want basically a consulting, say, front-end engagement to say where are we in comparison to other banks, other organizations. What have you done in the past that we could bring here? So we're very lucky in the fact that we've done quite a number of projects that customers say, oh, we like this one project you did. Can you do this for us? And that's taken us 3 to 4 years to build that credibility, build that use case. And once that's built, then I suppose it's a lot easier for customers to say, oh, you guys have done it before. Can you repeat it here? Here's my particular problem statement and what I'm trying to achieve from a process point of view. And can you automate this element? So what we don't pitch is end-to-end automation. What we feel in terms of AI evolution, what you're looking at is an engagement with knowledge that human beings have, the perceptions that human beings have in terms of the data. If you marry that with the tools of AI, then it becomes a very synergetic relationship. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not here to reduce headcount for our company, or we're looking at optimal performance using human beings and the tools available, the technology available, to get them more for the same resource.
Definitely. So we've kind of come to the end of the interview now. We've covered some really interesting points. So, for example, to do with working at home, remote working. On the one hand, you're spending lots of time with your family, which could be a good or a bad thing. The other challenges to do with that are about kind of firms and banks accessing data. That's posing a huge problem. Talks a bit about kind of customer experience and how the front end receives a lot of attention, but it's things like reg tech and automation of that back end that require some work. And then the benefits of AI, and just coming on to your last point there, how it's not about replacing people, it's about helping people do their work, allowing them to make kind of more do more high value work, as it were. So it'll be really interesting to see how the financial industry does coming out of this crisis. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And just as I was saying, it's the right time to do things in a different way.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of vendors and expertise out there. Go out and engage, and then use this time to engage, to do things a different way.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Nadeem, and thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you.